The wolf dog picked himself up, weaving back and forth on his unsteady legs. For a long moment he stared at Teo, his yellow, slitted eyes shining, his pink tongue licking at the bloody wound. Go. Go back to your pack and hunt with your friends. Soon you'll be strong again. Little Woofy hesitated. Teo saw it look back once or twice. There was a soft rustling, and then it disappeared into the night. After that, Teo was smiling. The wolf dog was gone, but he felt a sense of emptiness because he realized he was alone again. He got up and threw some dried willow branches and a log of birchwood on the fire, enough to last most through the night. Then he lay down and heard the whooping laughs of the hyena far out on the grassland. He knew they were hungry too. His hand reached out, and his fingers closed around the spear lying beside him. He was tired, and there was a weariness in his bones, so he fell asleep in no time very quickly. And as he slept, Teo drifted off into a narrow tunnel that led him to a large cave. On the floor there were shells and hollow stones filled with black, yellow, and red paints, and the walls were smooth and unmarked, just waiting for the hand of a painter. Teo picked up the red shell and dipped his finger into the oily color. With wild sweeps of his hand, he began to paint. His arm moved beyond his control, as if it had a mind of its own. Slowly, a bounding red deer took shape, its antlers thrown back, its nostrils flaring as it ran. It leapt over the ground, with fear and panic in its eyes. Teo put down the red shell and picked up the black one. Once again he dipped his finger in the paint and began to draw. This time he drew a huge black wolf, and it came forth, racing after the deer. With bounding leaps it gave chase, and great ruffles of fur stood out around its neck and shoulders, with a long waving tail that flew out behind it. Lastly, Teo picked up the shell containing the yellow paint. He dabbed it on the wall, and suddenly the wolf stared out with golden eyes. Teo went on drawing and painting, covering the walls with herds of bison and mammoths, horses, and aurochs. When he awoke, the sun was coming up over the horizon, and the fire was a gray heap of smoldering embers, and the shrill "kee, kee, kee" of a kestrel came from the branches of the dead willow tree. He rubbed his eyes and glanced around. He realized then that he had been dreaming. He stood up and looked out over the grasslands. The valley was bathed in golden light of color. The mountains in the distance were morning green. Here and there, small patches of snow marked the last footprints of the fading winter, and behind him, the long ridge of limestone cliffs, and on the top, there were the flatlands of the high plains. He felt the pangs of early morning hunger, and he started out across the valley through the knee-high grass. He stopped frequently to turn over stones and pull up sod in search of ants and grubs. He was used to going for long hours without eating, but now it had been almost 2 days without food, and he was growing weak. He found a few white grubs and plopped them into his mouth. Kerplunk! He swallowed them whole. He knew they would have tasted much better roasted, but he just couldn't wait. Even this wasn't enough. He had to find something more. And he knew if he had to go back to camp, he'd have to catch a rabbit. Once through the grasslands, He made it up alongside the ridge of the swamp until he came to the thickets of the alders and briar bushes. It was dense and tangled with creepers and thorns. He had never been past this place, but beyond he knew lay a dark marshland of winding creeks and green forests. The clan people called it the Slough. The elders said it was populated by demons. The hunters never went there, and women would not dig its roots or harvest its berry, lest they become cursed by evil spirits. Teo stood on the edge of this forsaken land and thought of the game and the food that may lie within, and for a moment the threat of taboo held him back. He limped slowly along the edge, undecided, trying to see beyond the tangle of vines and branches. Then through the thicket he heard the grunt of a sow and the answering squeal of piglets! Here, piggy! Little piglets. Instantly he forgot about demons and spirits and pushed his way through the thick briars, heedless of the thorns that scratched his arm and caught at his deerskin leggings. He plunged deeper. Soon the earth became soft and black and smelled of musty dampness and of sluggish creeks, and he heard the rattling calls of kingfishers. The dank woodlands was dark and green, with shafts of sunlight filtering through the bare branches of the hornbeams and willows. Teo stopped and glanced around. He wondered if the hand of an evil spirit would strike him. Guess what? Nothing happened. This place looked no more evil or dangerous than many places that he had seen before. Still, he gripped his spear a little tighter as he went in deeper. He came to a shallow stream covered with rafts of new watercress, and he scooped some up in his finger and smelled its freshness. He chewed some and found it crisp and sweet. Oyster mushrooms grew in thick clusters on the trunk of a dead birch tree. Berry bushes formed dense thicket between the scrub. The mushrooms were shriveled now, and the berries were sparse and dry. But he marked the spot in his mind. And by late spring, mushrooms would be lush and the berries would be ripe for picking. Another stream, he found a bed of freshwater mussels. He lay on his stomach and reached into the icy water and picked some out of the mud. And with his flint knife, he pried them open and ate the soft pink flesh. He was still hungry, but he did feel a little better now. A new lightness welled up within inside him. Here food was abundant. He leaned down and tried to catch a lazy suckerfish that was swimming along the muddy bottom of the stream. It was almost within his grasp. Suddenly, a hideous shriek echoed through the marshland. Wah-woo! Wah-woo! Eega-woo! Wah-ooga! That's what it sounded like. And the sound sent an icy chill racing down his spine. It came up from the far side of the creek. Teo jumped up quickly and stood, frozen in silence. He looked across the stream to the clump of dark cedars where the awful scream had come. If he had never seen an evil spirit before, he thought, he just might have a chance to right now. Dun dun dun!